can tell you that my philosophy, and Mark, you mentioned I might be a Green Bay Packer fan. Grew up in northern Wisconsin, and aside from that, if you study leadership and you look at it, and I've looked at lots of different leadership uh, manners and leadership skills over the years. And in my opinion, Vince Lombardi was one of the greatest leaders of people that there ever were. And I apply one quote from him to every organization that I'm involved in. And that quote is when
Hey, Finlit Live family, this is Darnold Jr. and we have Margie Venteo.
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Yes.
Cool. And this is a show where we're talking about business development because there's a lot of businesses that are struggling out there to make ends meet right now. Things are kind of tight for a lot of businesses, and that's okay. So what we're doing is Finlit Live is partnering with North Channel Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're putting together a show where we're going to bring you value to where you could apply the leadership principles that we're going to be talking about today to your business to be able to take it to the next level. And so I appreciate North Channel for partnering with me. And Margie, she's the president of North Channel Area Chamber of Commerce. And with that, she's going to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Darnold. It's with my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jim Wadzinski. He was born and raised in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where he attended the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, where he studied theater performance and business administration. He's been a resident of Baytown since 1983, and he's been in management positions in various businesses since the age of 16. He started young. When I first met Jim, it was, I don't know how many years ago that was. It was many years ago.
Oh.
He worked for Houston Community Newspaper, our local newspaper. He was the advertising director. He is currently the Community Affairs Customer Relations Manager for Community Toyota, Honda, Kia in Baytown. They have been members for over 17 years. He is a current chamber board member on our board, which I believe this is at least his second stint. He has served a 6-year stint, and now he's on his second 6-year stint. And he's the board president of the Highlands Lynchburg Chamber of Commerce and involved in many other chambers, as well as, endless number of organizations. Two to name are the Bay Area Homeless Services and Baytown Little Theater. Just on a personal note, also, he likes to hunt, fish, and cheer the Greenway Packers, and he plays a little golf out here. I think he's pretty good at it. So it is with my pleasure to introduce my friend and chamber board member, Jim Wadzinski.
Thank you, Margie.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, Darnold.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us. And so today's topic is about leadership. And you just shared a little bit of backstory before we came on camera. And wow, you've been through a lot.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, one of the things I'm actually really impressed with you is you're over the chamber for the Highlands Chamber, correct? Mm-hmm. And when you took it over, they were in the red, right? And
well, not quite, but it was awful close.
They were struggling, to say the least.
Yeah, they were one of those many victims of COVID.
Absolutely.
That pretty much took it to his knees, along with another set of circumstances that was very unfortunate. The executive director had a stroke right after COVID shut everything down, so it effectively brought the Highlands Lynchburg Chamber to a screeching halt. I think Margie probably could tell you stories about other chambers that struggled through that period as well, especially the small chambers have a very difficult time.
Absolutely. And they're like, we need new leadership. And so who do they call?
Well, I had been the president of that chamber for, I think 8 out of the 10 years prior to 2020. So when they started to put it back together, they called me to come back and try to help rebuild the chamber. We've been very successful over the last 9 months.
Nice. So what are some of the leadership principles that you applied that helped you to turn around the chamber
quickly? It's a combination of things. I can tell you that my philosophy, and then Mark, you mentioned I might be a Green Bay Packer fan. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, and but aside from that, if you study leadership and you look at it, and I've looked at lots of different leadership uh, uh, manners and leadership skills over the years. And in my opinion, Vince Lombardi was one of the greatest leaders of people that there ever were. And I apply one quote from him to every organization that I'm involved in. And that quote is, when Vince Lombardi took charge of the Green Bay Packers in 1959, they were the worst team in professional football. They'd won 2 games in previous 2 years.
Wow.
In the very first meeting with his team, he said this, or very close approximation of this. He said, "Gentlemen, we will constantly pursue perfection with full knowledge that we will never catch it because nothing is perfect. However, if we constantly pursue perfection, we will catch excellence. I'm not even remotely interested in being good."
Mm-hmm.
And with that philosophy, he took that same group of guys that were the worst team in professional football, people like Bart Starr and Paul Hornung and Jim Taylor, and then it goes on and on and on. And if you look at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you'll find them all there. That same group of guys 2 years later won the NFL championship and won it 5 out of the next 7 years.
Wow.
And it was the same guys that were the worst team with very few changes. So if you take that principle and follow it, it'll work for you. It'll work for you. Excellence is achievable if you pursue perfection. Okay? But never settle for good. There's another quote I like in leadership, and that is, good is the enemy of great. If you're ever satisfied with good, you will never achieve great. And so you apply those leadership principles. I'm also a big fan of Tom Peters and his leadership principles. Okay. When I'm in a leadership position, one of the things I do, and this is straight out of Tom Peters, is open door policies and lead by example and inspect what you expect. And he would go out into the business world and find stories and go into places like IBM and find out what made them successful from a leadership standpoint. Gore-Tex, for example. You're familiar with Gore-Tex? It's the material that you find in gloves and stuff when you go skiing.
Absolutely.
It's warm. Well, the guy that developed that, his company, one of the principles that was there is nobody had a title.
Mm-hmm.
There were no titles.
Interesting.
He literally took the door to his office off its hinges and threw it away.
Wow.
Okay, now this is a man with a almost $1 billion business, and he did not have a door on his office. And you know what his desk chair was? A barber's chair, because he liked it. Okay. All right. So my favorite story about him was he was walking through his factory one day doing an inspection, and one of the ladies that worked in the factory, who had been there forever, I think her name was Alice. I remember the story correctly. And she looked at him and said, "Mr. Gore, I've been here for 30 years, and I would like a title." And he says, "Well, okay, Alice, what would you like to be?" And she said, "I'd like to be an intergalactic commander." And he went out and had 500 business cards made for her that she was now the intergalactic commander of Gore-Tex.
Nice.
That's how meaningless it was to him. And if you take that down to its core, what it basically means is it's everybody's job. If you work for a company, especially a small company, everything is your job. Okay. I'm the customer relations and community affairs manager for Community Toyota, Honda, Kia, and Cartopia, or Community Auto Group in Baytown. My job is not to sell cars necessarily. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that if somebody doesn't buy a car, I don't have a job, because I don't have a customer to relate to. Right. I have no need to go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting because we've conducted no commerce. So the first 4 hours of my day today was spent with a friend of mine selling them a car. Mm-hmm. I don't get paid for it. I don't make a commission. I turn it over to a commissioned salesperson. But Margie, in fact, I did that with Margie.
You
Margie
did.
called me and said,
did.
I need a car. And I said, come and see me. And I stopped everything I was doing and we went through the process together. And then I turned it over to a commission salesperson so that they could make their living. But until we sell a car, I don't have a job. So, if we're a car dealership, then everybody's job in that dealership is to sell a car. If you want to see me lose my leadership mind, tell me it's not your job. Okay?
Yeah.
And I will promptly look at you and say, probably you're right. Your keys.
Inspire yourself, right?
You are probably right. And interestingly enough, I think I've learned more about leadership through my involvement with the Baytown Little Theater and directing shows in an environment that's the Baytown Little Theater is one of the longest lived all volunteer community theaters in the United States. We're in our 63rd year of existence right now. Continuously in the black. We own, and we just recently got our first federal grant. It's all been paid for by, ticket sales, local businesses, everything else. But it's a very interesting leadership exercise because what you're doing is you're dealing with a bunch of type A personalities. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to be on stage. So these are people that are all used to having things their own way. And they're volunteers, so you really have no hold over them other than they want to be there. And you've got to get them to do what you want them to do and make them think it was their idea the whole time. And it's a very interesting dynamic. But I've learned a lot about the dynamics of leadership through my participation in that environment. It's very interesting.
So can you elaborate on that? How do you motivate people to do what you want them to do and think it's their idea?
Well, I don't know. I think making them think it's their idea is probably a little bit of an exaggeration. But you've got to get people to buy into what you're doing, no matter what it is. Whether you're running a business or directing a show or whenever you've got a group of people together, you've got to get them to buy into what you're doing. So the first thing to remember, I think, from a leadership standpoint, is that every organization is a direct reflection of its leadership. Mm-hmm. How do you want this organization to look? And if you want that organization to look a certain way, you better look that certain way yourself in terms of how you conduct business. I insist people be on time. Okay. And by the way, on time, again, Vince Lombardi, I operate on Vince Lombardi time, okay, which is 30 minutes early is early, 15 minutes early is on time, and on time is late. Okay, if you arrive at 7 o'clock for 7 o'clock rehearsal, that train has already left the station. Okay, and interestingly enough, if you ever go to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, to a football game, you'll find every clock in the stadium is 15 minutes slow or fast, 15 minutes fast.
Wow.
Okay, every clock in Lambeau Field is set to Lombardi time.
Wow.
It's called Lombardi time. You can go there sometime. You'll and look at your watch and look at the clock. Every clock is 15 minutes fast. It's all set to Lombardi time. But if I'm going to demand that of people, then I have to set that example. So, for example, I had a rehearsal last night for our current production of Music Man. If you want to take it, go to BaytownLittleTheater.org and get some tickets. But I arrived for 7 o'clock rehearsal. It's 5:30 last night. Nobody walks in that building before I do. Nobody. Okay, the same thing applies to business. If you want your employees to be on time, you had better be on time yourself. You can't expect what you're not willing to set the example. So that's the first step. Second step is to understand that people have dynamics. Individuals have dynamics and organizations have dynamics. So every time you're working with a group of people, I think every business leader out there ought to really study psychology for a little while.
Absolutely.
Okay, because you've got to motivate people in a manner that they want to be motivated in. And to find that out, you've got to be able to ask the questions and read people and figure that out. I mean, there are people that if you yell at them, they're going to shut down. You're not going to motivate them. You do that to me, I'm walking out the room.
Right.
Okay. On the other hand, I don't appreciate a whole lot of head patting and back scratching either. Okay. A thank you every now and again will set me up just fine. Other people need a little more attention. Okay. They're a little more needy. to put it in a probably a form that is a little out there, but some people need that constant encouragement. Some people don't want it. Some people want to be left alone to do their job. You have to give clear and concise expectations of everybody. Make it clear from the outset. What are the expectations?
Yeah.
Whether it's a job or a task in a volunteer organization, what is the expectation? What is the deadline? Then hold people accountable and inspect what you expect. Okay? If you do those things, you'll find that the group will come together.
Nice.
The group will come together for a common cause. Sometimes you're a cheerleader, sometimes you're a taskmaster, sometimes the best thing to do is leave everybody alone. What I tell everybody is, look, if you're forming an organization, the best move you can make is surround yourself with the best people you can possibly find, give them clear and concise instructions as to what you expect, and then get out of the way.
Nice.
I once had a conversation when I was in my advertising director days. Somebody asked me that same question, what's your job as a manager of these salespeople that had territories and stuff? I said, well, let's put it this way. My job isn't to go out and sell the account for them. My job is to make selling the account the easiest possible thing to do. Put it another way, there may be two ways to get to a destination. One way is kind of roundabout and might take a little while to get there. There's another much more direct route, but there are some roadblocks. My job is to remove the roadblocks so you can take the most direct route.
Nice.
My job is to make your job easier. It's not to do your job for you. It's to make it easier for you. So if you communicate with me and tell me what's holding you up, I'll help you get it out of the way. But until you have, and that's the other thing, is make sure you have open lines of communication with your people. That same story from Gore-Tex. Take the door off the hinges. Okay. Our owner, Roger Ellswick, one of the finest men I know, and one of the busiest. Okay. The door is never closed. Never. It's open to everybody and anybody. You can walk into his office. And it's important to have that kind of line of communication.
Absolutely.
So those are just a few things.
That's awesome.
Well, Jim, I mean, I've known you for a long time, but I've learned new things today. And yeah, some great things.
Still
Yeah.
waters run deep.
In fact, I think you've answered any questions that I might have that I had. Can't think of any more at the moment, but you, Darn, can you think of another question?
I have questions for days.
I'd love to hear it.
So, wow, you've shared a lot of great leadership principles. What would you say is your biggest failure in leadership, and how do you overcome that? Because it's
I've had a lot, but I it's hard to pinpoint just one. The first thing I would tell you is, if you've never failed at something, you've never tried.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so keep trying.
And don't you feel like you learn also from that experience?
The best thing I can tell you is what I took away from it is what not to do.
Yeah.
Because in almost every instance, if you go back and look at it, you'll be able to figure out pretty quickly what it is you did wrong. Interestingly enough, I had a discussion last night with my cast for Music Man. And the discussion was, I had a couple of people who didn't feel like they were performing up to par, and they had looked at me and said, I don't want to let you down. And I got the whole cast together and I said, guys, there's nothing you can do that will let me down. Here's why. If you fail, it's because I've done something wrong. I haven't held up my end of this part. You aren't going to let me down. What I would ask of you is, don't let yourself down. Okay? You're not going to let me down. If you're not the best you can be, that's my fault. I've let myself down. I'm not going to let myself down. And I'm going to ask you guys to think the same way. Don't let yourself down. Don't let yourself be less than you can be. You can be everything you want to be. Just got to work at it.
Absolutely.
So I would tell you that's the biggest thing I've taken away from all the failures is you get up, you dust yourself off, and then you go, okay, what did I do wrong, and how can I learn? You learn from everything if you're willing to continue to learn.
Absolutely. And I bet you've always had that one person that they refused to do what you asked them to do, right?
Yeah.
I have a team myself, and so I'm always trying to motivate and encourage them, and it's like pulling teeth sometimes. So how do you motivate that one person that is unmotivated? But
Well, I will tell you, sometimes there's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you can do. But what I find has worked for me when I run into problems like that is constant coaching. And then also find a team member that they relate better to than you. Okay. Just because you're in charge doesn't mean you need to be in charge.
Right.
Okay. I'm not going to relate well to every single person I run into. It doesn't. I mean, there are going to be people who go, the guy's a jerk. I don't want to talk to him. And that's okay. You're never going to make everybody happy. And don't be so caught up in the ego of a management position that you're willing to go, well, that's just his problem. That might be a very good person that you just don't personally relate well to. See if there's another team member that can get with them and maybe pull them out of that because they have a better way to relate to. And the way you do that is by watching. Okay? Watch how your employees, how your fellow team members talk to each other, relate to each other. As a manager, you should always be watching those things. And you'll find that person who's bought into the system, but that other person is not. And you can pull them aside and say, hey, work with them. Here's where I'm having problems. Work with them. Okay, because apparently I'm not getting through. You don't want to waste talent because of ego. Okay, don't do that. Find a way to relate. Sometimes there's just no other way around it than this person isn't a right fit for this organization. Sometimes that's it. That's just the way it is. But many times, if you look at it and you think about it, and you again think about the dynamics of what's going on, you can find a way to bring them around. You just need to be willing to do it.
Awesome. These are all great pointers, and I'm pretty sure our audience is going to benefit from hearing all
I
the
hope so.
details you shared. And our goal is to make North Channel great,
Yep.
Put it on the map, put the east side of Harris County on the map, and let them know, hey, we're open for business.
Yes, we are. And we're good at it, and we want you here.
Absolutely. So any last thoughts you want to leave with our audience? How can people get a hold of you if they want to buy from you?
My email, you can find my email on the North Channel website, I believe.
Yes, you can.
As a board member, and I believe there's also a phone number. Call me, leave a message, send me an email. I'll be glad to respond. If there's any way I can help, I absolutely will. It's my whole gig is let's help people. It's one of the things I love about my job. I get to get up every morning and look in the mirror and say, gee, what do I get to help today? And it's not about making money. It's not about anything other than helping people and turning those experiences into gold. That's what I want, and I'm willing to share. I'm at a point in my life where I'm willing to share my knowledge with anybody. If they're willing to listen, I'm willing to talk.
Well, this interview has definitely been gold, and I appreciate you for sharing all the wisdom you have.
Very welcome.
I have a feeling we're going to have you back on in the future.
I'm glad to do it. Anytime you need me.
Well, if you got any value out of today, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube show. Also, if go to the North Channel Area Chamber of Commerce YouTube and subscribe to theirs, because we're going to post the show on both platforms. And then also they have a Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So go ahead and subscribe to North Channel Area Chamber of Commerce. And this is the place where we're helping people do business and live and
that's right. Your channel to success.
That's right. Your channel to success.
Oh, that's a new one.
So we appreciate you guys for tuning in.